Welcome to Leadership Bites with myself, your host, Guy Bloom. This is a leadership podcast where I have conversations with colleagues, I chat with guests, and sometimes there'll be just me talking. You can connect with me at livingbrave.com, and when you enjoy the episode, subscribe and please tell everyone. Garry, fantastic to have you, and I'm going to, for the first time ever, say back on the Leadership Bites podcast. Great to have you here.
G'day, Guy. It's so delightful to be back with you again. Thank you for the invite.
Well, I have done about 120 episodes or so now, and you are my first return guest. So this is a moment that of great importance, and you really resonated with me on the first episode that we did. I've vicariously been sort of observing you from a distance as you know you've navigated certain twists and turns, and I want to get into that. But just for those people that don't actually know who you are, just do an introduction so people got a sense of you.
Well, thank you, and hopefully my accent is still there, so to tell you that I'm an Aussie. But I've been living in the United States since 1994, and for the past 25 years, I've had the privilege and honor to lead the WD-40 company as the CEO, probably one of the longest sitting public company CEOs. 25 years is a long time, but it's been a wonderful journey. And I refired last September. I didn't retire. I refired, and now I'm consulting. I'm coaching, I think, 3 or 4 CEOs at the moment. I'm doing work around leadership and culture. And the reason I'm doing it is this, Guy, it's pretty simple, is that I believe business today has the biggest opportunity ever to make a positive change in the world. And the reason being is that we touch more people every day than most people do. And as I've often said, imagine a place where you go to work every day. You make a contribution to something bigger than yourself. You know you belong. You feel like you matter. You learn something new. You're protected and you're set free by a compelling set of values, and you go home happy. Happy people create happy families. Happy families create happy communities. Happy communities create a happy world. And by golly, we need a happy world. So I'm passionate, and I get up every day wanting to show leaders that they don't have to be the toxic leader. If you see over my shoulder over here, you'll see this guy here, right? I don't know if I introduced you to him last time. This is Al. That's the soul-sucking CEO of Fear Inc. And Al has behaviors that create toxic cultures. And I want to help Al not be Al anymore, or Alice not be Alice anymore.
And I think that deeply resonates with me. I spent the last 2 or 3 decades working with leaders and talent, etc. And one of the things, and I'd love your thoughts on this, is one of the things I notice is, of course, characteristically, there's a percentage of people that have very particular inherent characteristics that are negative. And that's almost a separate thing. How do you deal with that? But the majority of people are good people who want to do good work. However, it's the pressure of their context that creates a set of behaviors in them that is contrary to almost how they would even talk about themselves and how they would identify themselves. And I wonder if that's something that you notice or agree with, that, yeah, I think the majority of people do want to do good work. However, it's the context they operate in, etc. So I'll hand that baton over to you just to react to.
Yeah, I agree, Guy. Most people don't get up every morning with an objective to be a toxic leader. But I may have shared this with you before, and it's just a basic philosophy that I have. We're just these basic human beings bumbling our way down this pathway of life. And as leaders, in the bushes of this pathway are thieves, and they're thieves of greed, of short-sightedness, of anger, of ego, and they jump out of the bushes and they grab us and they take us into these areas that we go, wow, how did I end up here? So I think leadership is really a lot about awareness. Now, you would think a guy like me, after leading a public company for 25 years, wouldn't have to have a little list on his notebook here of who he wants to be when he thinks he's the best person he can be. But I've had that list for many years, and I have it on my computer, and I have to reflect on it often because I'm human. I get taken off my path, and if I'm not aware of that and I don't react to it in a positive way, then I'm not being the best person I could possibly be. So I think you're absolutely right that true leadership is about an awareness of who you are, but more importantly, who do you want to be be the best you can be.
So I talk about, and I love this because one of the reasons I wanted you back is because I resonated with a huge amount of what you said. Is I say to people every week, you say to yourself, what do I need to do this week? Or what do I need to do today? The other question then is, who do I need to be this week? Who do I need to be today? So on your B list, the who you want to be, what are those things, Garry?
So it says, am I being the person I want to be right now? And who is that person? And here's the list. I want to be grateful. I want to be caring. I want to be empathetic. I want to be reasonable. I want to be a listener. I want to be fact-based. I want to have a balanced opinion. I want to be curious. I want to be a learner. And I want to throw sunshine, not a shadow. So that's my list of who I want to be the best leader I possibly can be.
I think that's a hugely powerful thing to have to look at. I notice in your list, there are some words there that without maybe understanding, people may see as, I don't want to use the word weak because I know that that's the last thing that you are, but some people fear those words as a kind of a softness or not being edgy enough or being commercial enough. And I just kind of wonder how you, or when do you meet people that resist that kind of approach because they fear not being seen as the pointy edge of the pointy tip of the spear?
A lot of people refer to some of the behaviors that I've shared with you there as being soft skills. These are not soft skills. These are damn hard skills. They're very hard skills. And I get a little kind of agitated when people say, well, being a servant leader is all soft. But that's garbage. A great leader has a heart of gold and a backbone of steel because we have to deal with all of those things. And at the end of the day, if it's results that we want to get and results that we want to achieve, then it's our job as leaders to help people motivate themselves to do that. A dear friend of mine, Susan Fowler, has just written a new book. I think I have it here somewhere. And here it is. It's called Why Motivating People Doesn't Work and What Does. And she has a great statement in that. It says, motivation generated from values, purpose, love, joy, or compassion is different motivation than generated from ego, power, status, or a desire for external rewards. And the motivation that's generated from values, purpose, love, and passion and joy is extremely powerful because what you have is people who are doing things that they love for a purpose they think is bigger than themselves. So they're giving that extra, if you will, of themselves. So having an environment like this creates a momentum of performance that's much stronger than being that hard ass, soul-sucking CEO who must always be right, is a micromanager, has all the answers, hates learning, is not all of those hard, what they think is tough behaviors that aren't tough behaviors at all. They're just demotivating. Guy, I've lost you.
Oh, can you hear me now? Is that better?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Hi, there we go. Got to press the right button. So talking to a potential client this morning, we were talking about resilience, and I introduced this idea, which isn't mine, the vocabulary of anti-fragility. And what you're talking about seems to me to be that if you're motivated by the financials or your ego, etc., then there's an inherent fragility in that because you're your motivation and maybe your resilience is at the whim of whether or not you're actually being in the moment successful.
Yes.
Which seems to me to be different to what I call an umbrella belief, which is a belief that's bigger than you, which actually says, be it going well or actually be it going absolutely awful for whatever reason, I believe in something that's bigger than just the thing that's in front of me. And I wonder if that resonates with you.
Yeah, it's the difference between the finite game and the infinite game. Simon Sinek talks about this a lot. If you're playing the infinite game, it's really about what do we want to achieve for the greater good of the purpose over the long term. But you're right. If you think about business and think about what we've been through in the last 2.5, 3, 4 years, I kind of like to kind of describe it a little bit like this. So let's think about an aeroplane. So the aeroplane is the infrastructure of the business. So to be successful, you've got to have a good aeroplane. And we've got the aeroplane. That's fine. And then you've got to have a good crew and a good captain. And as we're getting ready to go on this journey, we have to know where we're going. So in business, you have to understand, where do you want to go? What is the strategy of the business? So we're getting ready to fly the plane. And the captain and the crew go into the flight planning department and they say, okay, captain, today you've either got headwinds or tailwinds. So, if you've got a headwind, it's going to take you a little longer to get where you need to go and you're going to burn a little bit more fuel. If you've got tailwind, it's going to take you a little less time to get there and you're going to burn a little less fuel, so you might be more successful. And we've all flown businesses with headwinds and tailwinds. But then there's this other thing. It's called turbulence. And if you've ever been on a plane, you know that the captain says, we're off, we're going to fly today. It's going to take us N number of hours, days, or whatever to get there. And, put on your seatbelt, but I think the flight's going to be okay. But if we hit a bit of turbulence, I'll tell you to turn on the seatbelt. I'll put on the seatbelt. So off we go, bang. And the next thing, we're, an hour in the flight, bing, 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 put on the seatbelt. And the captain comes on and says, we've found some turbulence. We don't know how long it's going to be. Please put on your seatbelt. We'll try and fly around it, upside it, around it, down it, whatever. So what happens then in turbulence? Well, the crew are working harder. Now you're taking longer. It's upsetting. It's tiring. So, in business, we're going to have turbulence. And what we've been through in the last couple of years is headwinds more than tailwinds, and a lot of this turbulence, which is really tiring for the crew. So I think that's the environment we're in. And in that environment, you still have to keep your mind and your objective set on where are we flying to. It's going to take us a little bit longer. We're going to be a little more tired. We've got to take care of the crew when we land because we need them to be refreshed and ready to fly the next leg. But that's how I see, the whole journey of business.
So you've spoken about just the last few years and the trigger obviously being COVID and people working at home and social media maybe showing us the lives that some people experience through sort of watching companies like Twitter and Microsoft and these kind of organizations where people are coming in and having their shakes before they work, then they're going to their Pilates sessions and all these kind of things. And I wonder if in these turbulent times when we're actually pushing very, very hard, if people are struggling a little bit with a little bit of memory of working from home, a sense of seeing things in social media that tells them that their work-life balance should be idyllic. And I wonder if people are struggling against the reality of the commercial enterprise and the promise of a nirvanic kind of work-life balance. I wonder if you see that or experience that.
Well, I don't think it's ever been a nirvanic work-life balance. I mean, it's just different today. And one of the things that is on my mind a lot is how do leaders fill in this sentence? And it's related to working from home or working in an office environment. Now, let's be very clear about it. There are a number of people who are at work today that cannot work from home. You cannot build a car in your lounge room. Well, you can, but it won't be too good. You cannot I'm on the board of a company called Gorilla Glue, great company that makes great adhesives. There's hundreds of people on the factory floor there that are making those products every day. So firstly, there's a number of people who can't. Now, those that can, here's the thing that I'm a little concerned about, is that as leaders, we have to fill in the sentence as someone's walking out the front door today, giving their husband, wife, or significant other a high five and saying, wow, I'm so excited that I'm going into the office today to fill in the blank. And the fill in the blank is not sit in front of a computer screen. So I think what we learned through COVID is there are some tasks in our work environment that we can do without having to go through the drama of going to an office and all of the time that it takes if we're not expected to be on a factory floor. But the thing we can't do is build relationships. And leadership is about building relationships. So, what I'm afraid of is this dream of we can all work from home all the time if our job says that that's possible is a reasonable dream, but it's not a reality because we need to have people together to build relationships, to build trust, to have that strategic discussion that you can't have when you're on a computer screen. So I think the pendulum's swinging a little bit where organizations are saying, okay, we'll give you a couple of days a week where you can do that in front of your computer screen work, no problem. But on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and one other day in the week, you need to come to the office for what reason? To build trust and relationships and to have those strategic discussions you need to have to drive entrepreneurialism, to drive learning, all of that. So I think that's the kind of place we're going through at the moment as we readjust to the world as it is today.
I do agree with that. And I was speaking to somebody that said, Guy, I can't imagine why anybody would ever want to return back to the office. And one of my responses to that was, that's because you live in a 5-bedroom detached house in the middle of the countryside. And
or Guy, or I'll tell you the other reason is because when they were there before, they were in a toxic culture and they hated it. I wrote an article that I published on LinkedIn back in just near the end of COVID phase, fill in the blank. And because everyone was talking about the Great Resignation, people weren't resigning; they were escaping toxic cultures. So why would anybody who lived and worked in a toxic culture before want to say, I want to go back there and be part of that agony and that torture? That's the whole point. Organizations that have great cultures, I know, at WD-40 company where I was for 25 years, we say get back together. People can't wait to be together because they miss each other. They miss the environment. They miss the love. They miss the feeling of belonging. They know they matter. So organizations where people are saying, I don't want to go back, you've got a problem. You had a toxic culture before. This is just telling you better fix it.
I think that's fascinating. I think one of the particular things as well is young talent. Really, if you're in your 50s or your 40s, late 40s or whatever, and you've got your job relatively under control, I can understand, hey, I can do certain things from home. But those youngsters that are coming through, I think those are the ones that also massively are damaged by not being exposed to people in the workplace. So just picking up on the question, I don't know if you do get asked it. You'll course correct me, but it's definitely something I want to ask. Is when somebody looks you in the eye and goes, "Yes, but see, the thing is, Garry, you don't know how hard I'm being pushed, and I know you understand your market, but I don't know if you fully understand my market." Or, well, actually, we're backed by private equity, Garry, and we're on a 3-year cycle, and these are the figures that we've got to achieve. So intellectually, I'm with you. But what the reality of me doing this, it's not that I don't agree with you, but the reality is, it wouldn't really fly in my space. How do you face into that?
So I'd ask you this question, Guy. I'd say, can you do this all on your own? Are you going to achieve this? Is it just you? And the answer will be no. You'd say, no. I need all the help I can get to be successful. So if Aristotle, who was born in 384 BC, was right, which says pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work, Isn't your role to create a culture where people are performing at a high level, where the will of the people is high? You can have the best strategy in the world, but if only 20% of your people go to work every day and are passionate, enthusiastic, and willing to give their all to meet the goal we have, to meet our purpose we have, 20 times 80, let's say your strategic plan is graded at 80, 20 times 80 is 1,600. But if 80% of people go, 8 times 8 is 6,400. So, if you think you can do it on your own, fine, but you're not going to do it. Our job every day when we go to do what we do is to enable people to deliver the best they possibly can. That's what it's all about. And if you do that, you'll be successful. But if you think you can do it in an environment where people just don't want to be there, well, you'll get that result. So I think that's the answer.
One of the things I observe, and my observation almost certainly may not be yours, is the difficulty that some people have in this whole idea of trust, or not letting go as in leaving it alone, but letting people get on with it. It's very hard. It's very hard for people. And somebody once said to me, Guy, I recognise that I rob people of their experience, because back in the day when I was younger, if something went wrong, you had a couple of days to put it right. In the new sort of digital age, everybody knows about it within 10 minutes and everybody wants an answer within half an hour. So it's definitely accelerated. And I'd just like your thoughts on technically competent leaders who are working in organizations where they probably end up micromanaging, they end up being overbearing, they end up intervening and getting in the way out of maybe their own fear, the anxiety that they're dealing with. And it's not even from a desire to dominate, but actually they end up in that space. So that letting go, I feel, is one of the biggest challenges. And I'm sure you have other observations.
Yeah, micromanagement isn't scalable. That's the challenge. And, if we think about the job of a leader in any organization, think about it as the coach of a footy team, right? Have you ever seen the coach of Man United ever run onto the football field, actually kick the goal and try and kick the goal in a game? No. Have you ever seen the coach great coach ever go to the podium and actually pick up the prize? Probably not. So our job as great leaders is to observe the play on the sideline and do whatever we need to do to help the player play a better game. But more importantly, most leaders get one thing really, really confused is, are we very clear about what our objective is? Imagine a game of football with no goalposts. Imagine a game of football with no goalposts and no starting time and finishing time. What would you have at the end of a period of time? You'd have a lot of tired people running around a paddock, not feeling like they've achieved anything. So I think micromanagement is about someone who hasn't set clear objectives and is not allowing people to actually play their game and telling them and showing them what winning looks like. If you don't have that, you're going to have a lot of tired people running around a paddock.
So when you consider a business, Garry, and people talk to you, as I know they do, and you're listening to people talk, do you have a kind of an innate, call it a sense of, or a little tick list of things that, because you're not, visiting every site and going around every organization. So how would you know, just from listening to somebody, that they weren't where they needed to be in terms of thinking like this? Because you could go in and observe and make your own observations. But when you're being offered it by somebody, what are the signals to you that say, well, I'm not there, but I'm pretty sure I can see what's going on? How do you see that?
I think the number one signal is when their ego eats their empathy instead of their empathy eating their ego, where they talk about it's all about me, and not about we. That would be number one to me. And then are they really dedicated and talking about the fact that their role is pretty simple? It's to help those that they have the privilege to lead step into the best version of their personal self. That's what we're about. And, are they being vulnerable? In 25 years that I was at WD-40, I often introduced myself as, "G'day, I'm Garry Ridge. I'm the consciously incompetent, probably wrong and roughly right chairman and CEO of WD-40 company," because I definitely didn't have all the answers. I needed a lot of help, and I'm glad I got it. And at the end, the result, what did we end up with? We ended up with a company over a period of time that, grew from a market cap of 300 million to nearly 3 billion. We 6x the revenue. We expanded to 176 countries around the world. How could I do that? There's no way I could do that. In fact, I was sharing with you before we started recording. I was in Europe last week. I was doing a tour of the European offices of WD-40, and I was in Germany. And I remember on August 9th, 1995, cutting the ribbon to open our German office. And there were 3 people. And our revenue was about, in those days, 500,000 Deutschmarks. And here I was there last week visiting, and we had over 50 people in the building now, or in the organisation. Our revenue is approaching 30 million euros, and it was. Could I have done that? No, I can't even speak German. So I needed to create an environment, or I needed to help create an environment where people wanted to do what they wanted to do, and they wanted to do it because they knew that they mattered and they felt like they belonged. Because that's it. People want to know they matter and they want to feel like they belong. That's it.
So in a space where you have set the destination, people are clear on the narrative and they can verbalize it back to you and they can align themselves to it, there is then, unfortunately, always going to be underperformance for whatever reasons. And one of my phrases, which I either made up or read somewhere, is what you tolerate can become a tolerance. And which is particularly true, I think, if you have long-standing relationships or a business has grown and somebody was absolutely so valuable X amount of years ago. But, even though they're still working hard and trying hard, it's easy when somebody doesn't want to care, isn't trying. That's an easy rejection. But I just, how does an organization deal with the people, not the overtly disingenuous, don't want to play people, but the ones that actually do care, do want to play, are trying to contribute, but the business has actually outgrown them. And I see that a surprising amount where there's a group of people that actually, the Peter principle is now an application. They've got to their own level of incompetence, even though they're working hard. How do you work with that, and what are your thoughts on that?
So one of the things we do is we protect our own comfort zone at the expense of other people's development. So my belief is that situation is an outcome of a period of time where the leader hasn't done their job to help develop that person over the period of time, because they were protecting their own comfort zone for whatever reason it was. And, I think that, again, if we go back to the analogy of a coach, our job is to help people improve their play all along the way. Now, certainly you're going to get to a stage where people, are at a level, and you need those people in an organization. They may be quite happy doing what they're doing at that level forever. Thank God they're there. But if you're not having the conversation with the people that you lead about, how do you want to grow? Where do you want to grow? What competencies do you want to improve on? How can we help you do that? Then we as a leader have let them down.
So that's a indicator to you that actually we've missed that person. We've not worked with that person. We've allowed it to happen. So it's easy to look at them and say, why didn't they? But actually looking at ourselves and say, why didn't we?
Why didn't
I? Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote a book, as you know, with Ken Blanchard, the 1 Minute Manager, called Helping People Win at Work. And the whole basis of the book is, how do we continually help people develop to step into the best version of their personal self? And it's done through, are we clear on what our expectations are? Are we doing that onward, that continual coaching? Do we have a clear set of values that help people, make decisions so they don't have to be quacking up the hierarchy all the time? And again, that's one of the reasons why, 100% virtual work doesn't work, because it's those conversations that the leader has. It's like, Guy, I want to have let's go for a walk and let's just have a conversation about you. What's on your mind? What's getting in your way? Are you okay? I'm here to help you win. That's what it's about.
So bringing us into, because I'm just so alert to the fact that I just keep you the whole week and just keep asking you questions. So I'll just try to be respectful of that. Where's your energy right now, Garry? You did allude to it at the start, but what do you, if I was watching you for the next 3 to 6 months, what would I see you doing?
Sure. Well, I have my consulting business. It's called the Culture Coach, and I'm working with CEOs. I'm coaching, I think, 4 or 5 right now. And my coaching practice is, I don't do rehabilitation coaching. That's not what I do. I like to work with leaders who have identified the fact that people really matter, and what do we need to do to help people shine. So I'm doing that. I'm on a couple of boards. One is Gorilla Glue that I mentioned to you earlier. I'm still doing some work with WD-40 company. My official title there now is Chairman Emeritus, which is the best job I've ever had, because I have no responsibility, no accountability. I can go to any party I like. So what a job! You don't get paid for that, but that's okay. I've been rewarded adequately for the time that I was at the company, and then I'm writing a new book that hopefully will publish early next year, which really is a reflection of...
And I'd love to hear the title of that. Give us the title of that book, because it's an absolute cracker, Garry.
Oh, yeah. Any dumb ass can do it.
That's fantastic.
Any dumb ass can do it. And why it's called that is, if I'm going to reflect on the 25 years that I was privileged to lead WD-40, and what were the learning moments over those 25 years that have allowed us to build at WD-40 culture, a culture that's the envy of many. 93% employee engagement, 98% of people say they love to work at the company, and 97% of people who work at the company say they respect their coach, who is their manager. We took the word manager out. Words matter. The person you report to is not your manager; they're your coach. And what's the coach's job? Well, I've explained that. So, and then I'm doing some public speaking, and I'm having fun talking to great people like you on podcasts and sharing some of my scar tissue.
Well, Garry, I'm going to bring us to a sort of a natural conclusion, because there is the first, and I do definitely want people to revisit the first episode that we had together. But I just really wanted to get an update from you, get a little bit of that wisdom from you without it turning into a full-blown coaching session. And you're an absolute joy. And I think there's something about the way that you come at this that says there's a succinctness, there's a clarity to the way that you think. And I will be pre-ordering wherever I take it. Amazon is where I can pre-order any Damas can do it. I don't know if it's available yet to do, but I'll definitely be looking out for it.
Let's when it's ready to go, I'll give you a ping. Let's get back on a podcast and preview and talk about it.
Well, I'll read it, and then we'll get you back on, and that'll be an absolute joy to do that. So on that note, so stay on for a few moments just to make sure everything uploads. But from me, from everybody listening, absolute joy, and thank you so much.
My pleasure.
That's it. So I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please share so others get to hear about us, and subscribe so you keep up to date on new episodes. Also visit livingbrave.com if you want to connect with me and find out more about executive coaching, team effectiveness, and changing culture. Oh, and of course you can buy my book Living Brave Leadership on Amazon. So on that note, see you soon.